Fall semester sports have kicked off and the A-Game is back to keep you up to date with everything Mountaineer sports.
Stay tuned as we bring you a recap of Appalachian football at Penn State and a trip down the mountain to UNC Charlotte. We'll have coverage of men's and women's soccer and tell you how the women's volleyball team did on their first tournament.
Mountaineer Spotlight host Jay Boyd sat down with Darrynton Evans about the season opener and how the team prepared to take on the 49ers of UNC Charlotte. We will bring you the first player of the week for the semester, so let's get started with Season 8 of the A-Game. I'm Gray Salter.
And I'm Austen Lopp, and this is the A-Game.
Two weeks ago, the Mountaineers stepped into the second biggest stadium in college football to take on 10th in the country, Penn State. Going into the game, people were skeptical about the Mountaineers' chances, but the Neers were able to prove them wrong. After a 28-point fourth quarter, the Mountaineers rallied back to force overtime, but were heartbroken by a phenomenal Penn State interception. And Austin, penalties were a pretty big issue for Appalachian State in that game. Things like unsportsmanlike conduct, intentional grounding, multiple holding calls, totaled up to 10 penalties for over 110 yards lost. The Mountaineers couldn't stop shooting themselves in the foot.
Absolutely, and going up against Penn State, who only had 2 penalties the entire game, it's just doing that. That's not smart football. That's not how you win, and it had a large effect on why we could not pull the win out that time.
Definitely an uphill battle.
Yep. Zach Thomas, though, excellent sophomore quarterback. Against Penn State, 25 for 38, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he did have that interception in overtime, but still, for his first game in that building, you can't really ask for more from the sophomore.
It was unbelievable, and like you said, only a sophomore. I mean, the kid's got a lot of time left to play here at Appalachian State University. Fantastic showing against Penn State in front of a raucous crowd. It was really, really loud in there.
The building was shaking the
absolutely,
whole time.
Absolutely.
Unless App State scored.
Right. Then you heard the Mountaineers. But, you know, part of what I think got Zach Thomas and the rest of that offense sparked up was the Darrynton Evans 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. That play was unbelievable. You and I were on the sideline, and he was right in front of us when he caught that ball.
He caught about 15 yards away from us, and we watched him run all the way down the field. I don't think really anybody expected it, especially with Penn State of just scoring on the opening drive. The Mountaineers really needed that so we could get some momentum going.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Absolutely.
A really large issue that we did have, though, is Penn State had 5 rushing touchdowns straight up the middle, almost untouched. It did have a large effect on the Mountaineers because it seemed that they could not stop them, and that had a really, really hard effect on us.
Most of those carries up the middle untouched, too, were touchdown plays. And, you know, I think part of the reason for that was the Mountaineers spent so much time trying to seal the edge, you know, towards the sidelines. They had McSorley, a really athletic quarterback. They had Sanders trying to get to the outside, who has unbelievable speed. So, you know, App State's defense focused on not allowing them to get outside and use that speed, but in turn left some holes up the middle for sure.
Absolutely.
And then the Mountaineers were able to rally back from those ground touchdowns with a 28-point fourth quarter, an unbelievable showing from the offense. Zach Thomas putting some balls on point.
Absolutely. Taking the lead in that fourth quarter was huge. Definitely silenced that building. App goes on to win the onside kick in the fourth quarter, which leads to missing that 56-yard field goal, but still an excellent fourth quarter. Almost, you can't really get any better than that when it comes to fourth quarters. You really can't. And the onside kick executed to perfection. And that field goal, man, kudos to Stanton for trying that, taking that shot, a 56-yard field goal. The crowd in there was so loud. I mean, unbelievable atmosphere at Beaver Stadium last weekend. It was really tough to hear yourself think at times. Absolutely. And when we got to overtime, it was a little bit harder. Penn State scored real quickly. We lost on an interception. An excellent play by the defensive back.
It really was.
I mean, it was a beautiful ball, but it was an even better play on the ball. So
unbelievable.
You can't really do much about that.
Sure. The attendance for the game in Beaver Stadium was 105,232 strong. As Appalachian State left the field of play, the stadium rose to their feet to give the Apps a standing ovation. What a sight that was.
A week later, the Black and Gold went on the road again to Charlotte and bounced back to beat UNCC 45-9 in a record-setting win. The Mountaineers were favored to win and scored touchdowns on offense, defense, and on special teams on Saturday night. Appalachian State won the game with a 39-point difference and is the largest margin that the Mountaineers have won on the road since the 2015 season. Huge part of that night was Zach Thomas. 14 for 14 passing, 295 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 on the ground. Huge night from Zach Thomas.
Absolutely impressive from Zach Thomas. And it was definitely a record-setting day when you mentioned it for the Mountaineers. Corey Sutton had the longest receiving touchdown in Mountaineer history, 90 yards. It was also the first time that any Appalachian State quarterback has ever been perfect passing on the day when he's thrown at least 10 passes. Zach Thomas really getting it done for the Mountaineers. And then the last record set on the day, which definitely we helped contribute to, the Charlotte attendance record at Richardson Stadium, 19,151 spectators on the day.
And a lot of Black and Gold in that building for sure. Got to see the 434 total yards of offense from the Mountaineers. The place was rocking, very loud, a great atmosphere.
It was a fantastic atmosphere. And, you know, the offense wasn't the only thing getting it done, like you mentioned. Touchdowns coming on all fronts for the Mountaineers. Really total domination. I mean, there was a touchback. Appalachian State actually tried to get a touchdown, got the ball poked loose, caused a touchback. Then Charlotte gets backed up to their own goal line, fumbles, and the Mountaineers end up recovering it for a touchdown themselves. So defensive touchdowns definitely a factor. And then Thomas Hennigan, an unbelievable 59-yard punt return. And you know that he was satisfied from that one because last season, right at the end of the regular season, Hennigan had a punt return for a touchdown. Would have been his 5th of the game against Lafayette, but had it called back because of a holding call. He finally got his revenge with that punt return on Saturday.
Finally got it back, and it's like Coach Satterfield said when asked, the defense kept them out of the end zone, and that was huge. And that's really, really what the Mountaineers needed to dominate the 49ers in that way. Coming up after the break, Mountaineer Spotlight host Jay Boyd sits down with Darrynton Evans. You're watching the A-Game on AppTV.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
I'm Jay Boyd here with Darrynton Evans, special team specialist for the Mountaineer football team, kick return specialist. So you were named Sunbelt Special Teams Player of the Week. How does that feel?
It's pretty good. Coming off an injury, last year, not being able to play, but it was pretty major getting out my first week back.
Yeah, so you returned this year after popping your popliteus muscle last season.
Yeah.
How does it feel to come back and be on the field with your brothers again?
It's really refreshing. It was pretty hard last year not playing and stuff, but coming back out, being able to contribute to the team is pretty major for me.
Penn State was the week 1 opponent. You came out and showed your face very early, had a first quarter kick return for a touchdown. Great return after popping your muscle and then having the same kick return in the Camellia Bowl. How does that compare, those moments, the bowl game versus Penn State?
Kind of really the same. I haven't really thought about it much yet because we got a whole year to go, but it's pretty good feeling knowing I contribute to the team, help us get towards winning at least for this game.
What does it mean to you to have those moments to yourself, to be the kick return specialist and to be trying to take that ball back for your team every time?
It basically gives me a lot of confidence when I can do something to basically change where the game is going. Knowing they scored pretty early in that game and coming in and answering them, it helped our team get a little bit of momentum going into the rest of the game.
Charlotte was a big game on the schedule this year. You guys are going down there to play that team. How does it feel to play an in-state opponent like that?
It's pretty good. It's going to be a really good crowd. Their stadium versus a sold-out game and stuff. So, in-state games, you never know how it's going to go. So, it's pretty good knowing that we get to play in-state team. And hopefully keep going for the next couple of years.
The football season is just now starting, but of course you guys have to take some time away from football. What are you doing to take your mind off the game?
A lot of times, once I got my little bit of free time, I'll do a little bit of Fortnite playing the game, 2K19, so I can do myself. I got no more on that. Yeah, nothing really.
How you feeling about the books this year? You good on your class load?
Yeah, I'm good on my class. I got to just maybe not travel last year, so I really need to skip the whole year to come back this year and just really have that football.
How do you balance the two?
You got to prioritize. When you got something, you got to get it done.
What types of things are big for you? You play multiple positions. You sometimes are in the slot for the Mountaineers. You run the ball, and you kick return specialist. What types of things do you have to do to split those times in practice?
Really just mainly watching film. As long as I know what I'm doing, I feel pretty confident about what I'm doing. Whether it's running back, the defensive line, whether I'm in the slot, even the secondary, whether it be back return, knowing where to aim for return and stuff.
What's your favorite out of the three?
It's kind of hard to say. High school, I would say running back. Coming in here, at first it was slot, taking a lot of less hits and stuff, but starting to more so go back to running back since that's what I'm going to play this year.
Where do you think the best opportunities are for you? Do you think they're in that running back position?
Yeah, I would say so. Really, it's just we got a good old line. They're pretty young too, so they'll be here for the next couple of years. So, yeah.
You spoke on the offense and the youth that's in that room. What do you bring as a sophomore? You're a redshirt sophomore, but you've been here a few years. How do you feel, and what do you bring to the table in those offensive meetings?
I feel good about us being a young team. Knowing if we can come out and compete with a team like Penn State, and we're so-called one of the youngest teams in the country, I guess. Knowing basically nowhere to go but up from here. And then I feel I contribute with a little bit more speed to the team. We got a lot of fast guys who just came in. We got Corey Sutton, we got Damo, we got Jalen Virgil on the outside, and then putting me on the inside, back returning, just opens up the offense and special teams a lot more.
What do you think Mountaineer fans can expect to see out of this team that maybe they didn't see offensively out of the Mountaineers last season?
Honestly, I would say explosive plays. But we got a lot of guys who, if they get the ball in open field, they're pretty good, or even if you give them a 50-50 chance, a lot of times they're going to come down with it more than not.
Do you think Corey Sutton is the X factor in that receiver room?
I would say all of them, honestly. All of them. We got Malik, Damo, Thomas. We still got Mark Adams who's coming back. We got Brad Apsher, big-time player. Corey. You got Darius Swift, who haven't really played much yet, but it's a lot of guys who can make plays.
What types of goals have you as an offense and you just as an entire team have made for this season?
Offense, we're trying to run it up on everybody, basically control the game. And then as a team, we want to go to the New Year's Six Bowl.
Thank you. Darrynton Evans, Jay Boyd, Mountaineer Spotlight.
A big thanks to Jay Boyd for that interview with Darrynton Evans. Very cool to see some insight on a guy who's so impactful for Mountaineers special teams. We saw that against Penn State with his 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. We also saw a little bit of that against Charlotte. Very cool.
Now let's go to the Q&A game with Sam Foltz and Brett Wiseman. They're on campus asking people what their favorite App State touchdown celebration is, as well if they follow any App State athletes on Twitter.
All right, guys, App State football season's in full swing. I want to hear your best App State cheer for when you're at the game.
Go Apps! Wow!
So, as you know, App State football is in full swing, and I want to know how you cheer on your Mountaineers. So, can you give me your best App State cheer? Oof. Go App! Woo! The spirit's there, ladies and gentlemen. The spirit is there. Yeah. I want to know how you cheer on your Mountaineers. So, give me your best App State cheer.
Hello.
Yeet.
Yeet!
If you follow any of the football players on Twitter or Instagram, who's the best one to follow and why?
I don't follow any of them.
Will you after this?
Probably not.
That's fine.
Okay, do you guys follow any football players on Twitter or Instagram? And if you do, who's your favorite?
I don't follow anybody, but I like Duck a lot.
Clifton Duck? Mm-hmm. He's the man.
Definitely the man.
If you follow any of the App State football players on Instagram or Twitter, which one's the funniest and why?
I do not follow any of them on Instagram or Twitter, but if I did follow one of them, so long as they make any kind of reference to a vine or something, they got me.
With that, what's your favorite vine?
Who's your friend?
This is Marco.
Could Marco play wide receiver?
I think he could do his best. He loves to grab anything he can, honestly.
Marco got a good 40-yard dash time.
Probably quicker than most of the other players, honestly.
He runs a 4.3. He's going to get drafted. It's happening. Good job, Marco.
So, Gray, what is your favorite touchdown celebration?
Man, I think my favorite touchdown celebration has to be where they pretend the ball is stuck to their hand and they're trying to get it off, so they start shaking it, but it's still stuck in their hand. I like that one.
I like the one where they use the ball and they pretend that it's a bar of soap and they like
get a little squeaky
yeah,
clean.
because it's like the cleanest one out there.
I like that one.
That's a good one. You follow any App State athletes?
I've seen Thomas Hennigan on Twitter a good bit. I like Thomas Hennigan.
Okay.
I've seen Ronshad Shabazz when he was declaring for the draft in the NBA.
Posted that
Definitely
on Instagram.
wanted to follow him a little bit.
Yep. I aside from any cheerleaders that I follow, Zach Thomas just earned himself a follow. Congratulations!
No doubt. I need to do that
After those past 2 games, you earned it, my man. You don't even have to follow me back. So coming up next on the A Game, we will give you coverage of soccer, volleyball, and field hockey. Stay with us.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. As it turns out, we have very similar personalities. And this cat makes me make art because he's always motivating me to take pictures of him, to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. It's just that simple. Well, he's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
The Appalachian State volleyball team has played in 2 tournaments since the start of their season. The Appalachian Invitational was the first home tournament in the Holmes Convocation Center. A game reporter, Brett Wiseman, has the story.
The App State volleyball team posted a 1-2 record in this weekend's Appalachian Invitational. The host Mountaineers came out strong in the opening game, defeating Davidson in straight sets. Kara Spicer led the way for the Mountaineers with 12 kills and 8 digs. 2 valiant efforts followed, but the Mountaineers ultimately fell short against Clemson and Mississippi State on the tournament's final day. The Mountaineers pushed the eventual tournament champion Tigers to a decisive 5th set, but fell in the end. The Apps then dropped the final game of the tournament to Mississippi State in straight sets. The biggest takeaway from the weekend was the play of setter Becky Porter, whose play earned her Sun Belt Co-Setter of the Week honors. Porter dished out 124 assists, 13 kills, and 21 digs in the Apps' 3 games. For AppTV in the A Game, I'm Brett Wiseman.
Thanks, Brett. The Black and Gold are on the road this weekend in Raleigh and Bowie's Creek for the NCSU and CU Invitational. The Mountaineers' next game will be Tuesday, September 11th at East Tennessee State.
The women's soccer team fell to the North Florida Ospreys 1-0 this past Thursday at Ted Mackerel Soccer Complex. The Mountaineers had a 6-5 shot on goal advantage and a 16-11 lead in shot attempts. Despite the effort from the Black and Gold, North Florida landed the only goal of the game within the first 2 minutes. The App State offense was strong and attempted to tie the game in the second half. Molly Newald was inside the box at the 53 but could not capitalize. Newald went on for a second shot on goal but was saved by the North Florida keeper. The Mountaineers played Radford at home on September 8th. 2 late goals put the Mountaineers at a disadvantage that they couldn't overcome.
The men's soccer team took on Belmont this past Monday, also at the Ted Mackerel Soccer Complex. A-Game reporter Jamie Patel was at the game, and he has more.
It was a warm and welcome return for the undefeated Mountaineers at Ted Mackerel Soccer Complex. Appalachian State started the 2018 campaign off to a flyer. 3 wins out of 3 for the Black and Gold, including a 2-1 win over VMI just 2 nights before they faced off against the Belmont Bruins. Reed Honeycutt tested Nicoladini early on before the Bruins went down to 10 men as Valstake saw red for his clumsy challenge on Tarantini. The Mountaineers capitalised on their 1-man advantage in the 33rd minute. Demetrius Moraitakis was first to react to Charlie Baird's ricocheted effort and slotted past Dini. Just before the half, Matteo Benatti could have equalised had his header found the target. Instead, it flashed just wide. Alex McGrath wasted a golden opportunity to double the lead and skied his effort over the bar. With halftime approaching, Belmont found themselves in even deeper trouble when Nick Kramer was given a second yellow for dissent. Appalachian went into the second half in search of blood, and Ian Bennett provided the killer blow. His controlled strike from 20 yards nestled into the bottom corner to put the Mountaineers out of sight. The Apps sealed the deal as Bennett turned provider for Austin Hill to chip over Deeney. 3-0 the final score in the perfect finale to a 100% weekend for Mountaineer soccer.
Appreciate it, Jamie. Soccer played ETSU on the 8th. The Mountaineers are off to a strong start with an undefeated season so far. The Black and Gold will travel to Asheville this Wednesday to defend their undefeated season. Now it's time for our Player of the Week, and Austin, for me, it's none other than Zach Thomas. I mean, unbelievable performances in Week 1 and Week 2, and I know it's our Player of the Week, but for me, Penn State is really what got it done for him. To be able to, at such a young age, sophomore in his first start, step out in front of 105,000 people and just put on an absolute show, got the standing ovation at the end. He really, really impressed me.
For me, that record-setting weekend against UNC Charlotte, that had it for me. First Sun Belt quarterback to go perfect when throwing more than 10 passes, 14 for 14, 295 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 on the ground. It just really doesn't get much better than that.
Almost a flawless game for him. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Season 8 of the A Game right here on AppTV. I'm Gray Salter.
I'm Austen Lopp. Thanks for watching.